Yeah, we back. Now, today's going to be a quick video. We're going to be talking about Ibrahim Traoré calls out the president of Ivory Coast. Now, recently there was a coup attempt in Burkina Faso. I saw this travel advisory put out by the U.S. government back on the 16th. And now recently we are now getting news that there was a overthrow attempt on the government. Now, not wasting no time, let's jump into some of these articles. Several military officers arrested in a suspected coup plot in Burkina Faso. In this latest coup attempt, which happened last week, but details of which have only just been released, Sana said the plotters attempted to use Burkina Bay religious and traditional leaders to sway army officers into backing the plan. Now, Sana, I believe they're talking about Mahamadou Sana. That's this brother right here, the Minister of Security. Now, let's continue. The maneuver was to culminate, according to the terrorist plotters, on Wednesday, the 16th of April, in an assault on the presidency of Burkina Faso by a group of soldiers recruited by the nation's enemies. Sensitive information was passed on to terrorists to increase attacks on the military and civilians and incite a revolt against the authorities. Last week, several military personnel, including 2 officers, were arrested for planning to destabilize the government. Authorities in Burkina Faso have reportedly arrested several military officers, including 2 high-ranking unit commanders, in connection with an alleged plot to overthrow the government. Sources indicate that Commander Frederick Ouattara and Captain Elise Tassimbido are among those detained in recent days. There are also reports that former military personnel previously dismissed from the army are under investigation in connection with the suspected plot. The aim of the plan was to sow total chaos and place the country under the supervision of an international organization. The army alleges that the plotters were based in neighboring Ivory Coast. Now, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, the president of Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara. Now, as you already know, President Alassane Ouattara, one of the most trusted allies of the West, right? And many people don't know, of course he's a trusted ally of the West, because when you understand how he came to power, then it wouldn't surprise you, right? Alassane Ouattara, he did not come to power through, peaceful democratic processes. No, he came to power by force, installed by Western militaries and Western governments and French airstrikes. Now, at the time, I believe it was 2010 or 2011, you had 2 presidential candidates in Ivory Coast. You had Laurent Gbagbo, who was seen as a more nationalist type figure, who was seen as kind of more adversarial to Western interests, and you had Alassane Ouattara, somebody who was seen as more friendly, more cooperative, somebody who was educated in Western universities, somebody who made a career working in international organizations like the IMF, right? Somebody who was seen as the preferred candidate by the Western governments. Take a look up on the screen. The Second Ivorian Civil War broke out in March 2011 when the crisis in Ivory Coast escalated into full-scale military conflict between forces loyal to Laurent Gbagbo, the president of Ivory Coast, and supporters of the internationally recognized president-elect Alassane Ouattara. Now, ironically, during that time, Alassane Ouattara and the forces that were loyal to him had used Burkina Faso under the leadership of Blaise Compaoré as a rear base of operations. Now, a rear base is, like I said before, a safe haven, somewhere you can rest and regroup, somewhere where you are free from retaliation, because when you go over the border, the military of that government cannot chase you over the border into the other territory of the other government. So a rear base is a safe zone. So Burkina Faso served as a rear base for Alassane Ouattara and the forces that were loyal to him. So now, in a twist of irony, Alassane Ouattara is now allowing his country to be used as a rear base to attack the government of Ibrahim Traoré. And of course, nobody's surprised, because like I said, Alassane Ouattara owes everything that he has to the Western governments, because he didn't come to power through a smooth democratic process. He came to power through French airstrikes. He came to power under the cover of U.S. diplomatic backing, right? So obviously, when it's time to return the favor, he's obviously going to be ready to go. That's why he was the first nation to stand up and pledge his willingness to send troops to militarily intervene in Niger to so-called restore democracy back in 2023 when the military in Niger came to power. Now, let's talk about how we came to power back in 2011, right? Let's talk about, take a look up on the screen. This headline came out like 14 years ago. Airstrikes on Gbagbo's residence. UN and French helicopters attacked the Ivorian presidential residence. So as you can see, this is somebody who came to power because the French government had attacked the Ivorian presidential residence and installed him into power by force. Now let's continue. The United Nations and French helicopters have fired rockets on the residence of Laurent Gbagbo, Ivory Coast incumbent president. That headline came out back in 2011. Now, as you can see, I'm not surprised at the accusation against the president in Ivory Coast. that he is allowing his nation to be used as a rear base for certain destabilizing agents against the government in Burkina Faso. But that's why I said on previous videos, if I was a head of state, to me, that would be deemed as a matter of national security if I had neighbors that were in bed with nations that I deemed to be adversarial to my interests, or nations who I would deem as enemy nations or hostile nations. If I had neighbors that were in bed with those nations, I would deem that as a risk to national security, because as you can see right here, right, those nations will be used as a rear base to destabilize you. Now, earlier today, I dropped a video entitled U.S. General Attacks Ibrahim Traoré for using gold to protect his power. And I was talking about General Michael Langley, the Supreme Commander of AFRICOM. Basically, he had attacked the credibility of President Ibrahim Traoré. And of course, it was funny to me because out of all the presidents on the continent that you could have called out, you decided to single out the most popular guy on the continent. Now, to me, that was very ironic. But if you remember a few months back, General Michael Langley was actually in Ivory Coast, meeting up with President Alassane Ouattara, right? They was kicking it, you know, having conversation, having discussions, taking pictures. Man, they was having a good old time, as you can see. Now, I'm not saying that General Michael Langley was involved in this latest overthrow attempt against Ibrahim Traoré. I'm not saying that. To me, it could be all coincidental. The travel advisory, the statements that he made, and then the overthrow attempts. To me, I don't have any hard proof to make the connection, so it's all speculation. But I do know that when you see pictures like this, when you see General Michael Langley with the president of Ivory Coast, that symbolizes to me that their geopolitical interests are in alignment. The geopolitical interests of Ivory Coast and the geopolitical interests of the United States are in alignment. And Alassane Ouattara, as you already know, a trusted Western ally, a trusted Western vassal. And in fact, it was the United States that provided diplomatic cover for the military operations that brought him to power, right? When the French military was launching airstrikes and killing civilians, the United States government provided diplomatic cover for those crimes that took place that brought Alassane Ouattara to power, because Alassane Ouattara was the preferred candidate for the Western governments, right? And as you can see, it's been 15 going on 20 years and he's still in power and nobody's calling for democracy. You notice that, right? Nobody's calling for democracy in the case of Alassane Ouattara, who has been in power for damn near 15 years, right? Like I said, Ibrahim Traoré, he was in power for less than 6 months and it was already calling for the restoration of democracy. Alassane Ouattara, 15 years. He got his feet kicked up. He just relaxing, having a good time, right? He's comfortable in the seat of power, right? But of course, we're not surprised, right? We're already well acquainted with the hypocrisy of our enemies. But anyways, take a look up on the screen. The relationship between Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast has been described as strained, with limited communication and cooperation, particularly regarding security issues along their shared border. This has been attributed to factors including mistrust and insufficient coordination, leading to missed opportunities for joint operations and intelligence sharing. Now, whether he likes it or not, President Alassane Ouattara, he is directly or indirectly complicit in any destabilizing operations against the government of Burkina Faso, because he could easily take certain concrete steps to make sure that his country is not used as a rear base for certain destabilizing agents against their neighbors, right? Like, for example, number one, you would start by actually securing your borders, right? You would deploy military personnel along the border. You would conduct surveillance along the border. And not only that, you would also share intelligence with the government of Burkina Faso to identify and track certain criminals that may be involved in certain plots to destabilize the government, right? You would arrest and detain these individuals and send them back to Burkina Faso for judgment and trial and punishment. But because you have failed to do any of that, and you have allowed these individuals to roam freely on your territory, unpunished and unhindered, then now you are directly or indirectly complicit in whatever crimes they carry out. And of course, we already know you're simply doing this on the behalf of your backers. And because you have not taken any concrete steps to collaborate with the government of Burkina Faso to ensure peace and security in the region, you will now be forced to bear the accountability and the responsibility for whatever crimes are carried out. If a government allows their country to be used as a rear base of operations to destabilize their neighbors, you are either two things. You are either complicit or you are either negligent, either or. You are either complicit in their activities, the criminal activities, or you are negligent, which means you're incompetent. And that's equally as bad. So that's the reality of the matter. That's the reality of the matter. Alassane Ouattara, Western vassal, doing Western vassal activities. Now, anyway, it's your boy Nevercard. That's Alain back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel. Support the album. Sahel 1816. Go to my homepage or go to my playlist section. Enjoy the album, and I'm gone. Peace. Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up in Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up and we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi Mans. Thought you was loyal, thought you was real. Didn't even wanna come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing a party. Right on the south and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Said that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Wanna get married and have my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up in the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Give one look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live it. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, and that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gon' fold when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Candace position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the south. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head to my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.